Greetings and thank you for attending this session focused on defining goals and adding strategies in the Michigan Integrated Continuous Improvement Process, MICIP. Our team has structured today's session around taking a trip. When you take a trip, you want to visit as many tour stops as possible. And today, we will do just that. Our session will make several tour stops in the MICIP platform, with some stops explained more in depth than others. So, pack your bags, and here we go. Today, our team consists of Lindsay Brindley, the School Improvement Facilitator from the Eastern UP ISD, Mike Fine, Science and School Improvement Facilitator from Ottawa Area ISD, Paul Boyer, Director of System Improvement and Evaluation from the Traverse Bay Area ISD, Barbara Mick, Educational Consultant from the Crawford Ascota Agama Ross Common, or CORE ISD, and myself, Marquita Hall, District and School Improvement Manager from Wayne Risa. In today's session, we have available for you a note-taking document. As a way to increase your engagement level, we encourage you to consider using this as a resource for professional learning. This guided note-taking document will also be reviewed to determine the effectiveness of today's session. At the end of the session today, there will be a Q&A portion. We will ask you to complete a Google form. This form will provide our team with actionable feedback for future sessions. The link will be placed in the chat for both forms. And we thank you in advance for your high-level engagement and participation. The MICIP sessions for this year's conferences are broken up into sections. Another section titled From Data to Challenge, the MICIP Assess Needs process, focus on a very important portion of assessing needs. This process focuses on what does district academic data look like, non-academic data, and systems data review to show what might be working or what may be challenging districts as they consider areas to focus on. District data will tell a story leading to what needs are identified for improvement or what areas are districts performing up to expectations. Our session today, we are focusing on writing measurable goals, the planning process, which includes writing measurable goals, setting end targets, selecting strategies, looking at the readiness hexagon tool, choosing activities, looking at how to braid and blend funding, as well as identifying a communication plan. As we focus on writing measurable goals and setting in interim targets, we want you to think about what will you achieve and how will you know when you've achieved it. If you don't know where you're going, you will end up somewhere you may not want to be. Proper planning, systems thinking is essential in developing measurable goals. And this is paramount to any district success. Let's take a closer look at this. After reading the street signs and the quote, the district takeaway should be that proper planning and monitoring a district's mission for ensuring the success of all of its students will not come to play unless you engage in proper planning. As we head out on this trip, remember that when you take a tour, you anticipate that you will be open to learning new things and exploring new ideas. We want you to think about the content in a different way. Consider the following questions. How is your planning process supported by the systems you have in place? How does your process ensure provisions of equitable opportunities and supports? And how does your process reflect a whole child focus? Keep an open mind and do lots of exploring. Goal setting is a part of the continuous improvement process. Whether you want to set goals for your district or your personal life, defining concise, clear goals are very important. Goals provide a target to aim for. Clear goals can give a district tremendous momentum and intense purpose. What makes a goal clear is by clarifying its importance and making sure that everyone is aware. Let's move into the elements of a measurable goal. Defining goals randomly can be difficult without a template to support the district's thinking. Using the SMART goal template you're already familiar with provides an opportunity to allow for more visual structure for districts to developing specific goals, leading to a timeline for implementation and the necessary action steps to achieving the goals. Whether the goal is clear and defined, specific, whether it is measurable, that it's a criteria that's measuring toward the progress of a goal. If the goal is attainable, are we able to achieve this goal? Realistic, is it within our reach? Is it relevant to the work that we do? Is it relevant to our current reality? And timely, have we defined a timeline or a time frame to reach the goal? The MyKit platform, districts would use this section to write a defined goal. You would create a one-sentence goal to solve as defined in your challenge statement. The goal should include a measure and a due date. It should be a SMART goal, as we just discussed. This is what you will see: define measurable goals within the MyKit platform. Now let's walk through the steps of creating a SMART goal. As a district team reviews and analyzes data, a data story begins to unfold. Now, as we stated before, the previous section is assess needs. This is an example of what will come from assessing needs. Disney District team looked at changes in their students' performance in math and reading scores between 2014 through 2019. They looked at the 10th, the 25th, the 50th, and 75th percentile, and the 90th percentiles. This allowed that team to see whether progress has been even across the performance distribution of all of their students. And if there was more progress at the highest level of achievement than at the lowest. So within their data discovery, the team noticed that students scored at 10 percentile dropped in both grades between 2014 and 2019, both grades being grades 4 and grade 8. The scores at students that performed at the 90th percentile rose in both subjects, increasing by 5% in math and 3 points in reading. 5 points in math and 3 points in reading in grades 4 and 8. This also seems to occur across major student reporting groups by race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status. Their data discovery also noted that Black students, Hispanic students, white students, and those eligible for free and reduced lunch all showed a divergence in achievement between the groups that performed at the highest level and those that performed at the lowest level, creating a huge gap between students that were performing at the 90th percentile in comparison to those that performed at the 10th percentile. Based on the deep dive into their data and analyzing their data, they were able to identify root cause. The team found discrepancies existing in access for underrepresented groups enrolled in advanced courses. Perception data showed that students didn't feel challenged in their offerings, and only a small subset of students were offered these opportunities. They also found that discipline was an issue and attendance was an issue. And these were lifted and found to be connected to the lack of high quality and engaging learning opportunities. So as a part of the needs assessment, the district team was able to identify their challenge statement. And their challenge statement is intended to help drive the development of a robust goal. Their challenge statement is that the district does not have a system in place to address the inequities that currently exist in providing opportunities and access for challenging and engaging learning experiences for all students. The district came up with the following goal: increase enrollment in advanced courses by 25% across underrepresented groups by the 2022 to 2023 school year to improve students' performance, inclusiveness, and provide equitable access for all students. The district team collectively built on and agreed upon this goal and followed each step of creating a SMART goal. We have now completed how to write a measurable goal. So congratulations. Each of you just received a stamp on our MyKIP passport. Now we're off to the next tour stop, setting targets and goal attainment. This step is often missed in the process of goal setting. It is very easy to get so focused on the outcome that sometimes we may forget to plan all of the steps that are needed along the way. By writing in targets and interim targets, measures, and a due date, and then reviewing each target and measure along the way, your district will realize it as making or not making progress towards the goal, which is a very important step. This is especially important if the district goal is a big and demanding goal, and if it's long-term. Good practice is to post the goal in visible places to remind your team members of the goal, as well as reviewing the goal and your interim target at school improvement team meetings and other community meetings to make sure that everyone is keeping the goal and target and everyone understands your progress of meeting your goal. So in target measures, it is the value that defines the ultimate goal, where you're trying to get to. That's your in target measures. Your interim target measure is the value that measures progress toward your measurable goals. And that value could be in a quantitative measure or qualitative measure. Once your goal has been identified, you would, as we stated, create end and interim targets. So the end and interim targets for our Disney school district, their end target is that they want to increase enrollment and advance the coursework by 25%. So their interim measures, those things that they will put in place to help them progress monitor to make sure that they are on track to meeting their goal, for an example, would be they're going to build a K-8 pipeline for advanced placement opportunities to allow students, for all of the students, for the 2021 school year. They will invite groups of students to the AP courses to increase awareness and enrollment. They'll also increase course offerings by adding 5 additional offerings to attract more students to challenging courses by the end of 2021. As we stated, planning is critical to ensuring the success of each selected goal. As we look at the next several slides to identify key areas for successful strategy and selection and implementation toward attaining selected goals, we ask you to think about how you would create a working culture that is intrinsically motivated to solve problems one step at a time. We have now completed the set end and interim targets portion of today's session. Congratulations, you've just received your stamp of the MindKit passport for interim and end targets. The next session will focus on districts and begin the development of a plan of continuation in the areas showing and encouraging positive results and undertaking areas in needs improvement. Remember, proper planning, systems thinking is essential for districts to provide equitable academic, non-academic, and systems level opportunities and resources for all students.
As Marquita mentioned, the district team now begins to build a strategy implementation plan, selecting strategies that will support attainment of the district goal. Districts will begin to research appropriate strategies for consideration using Michigan's strategy source, My Strategy Bank. My Strategy Bank may contain strategies entered by a variety of agencies, including but not limited to the Michigan Department of Education, intermediate school districts, and local school districts. Many strategies in My Strategy Bank have levels of evidentiary support assigned using guidance from the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. These ESSA levels denote the method through which efficacy was proven, either by a state or local education agency, or through an outside research agency, such as a regional educational laboratory. 5 factors determine an intervention's evidence rating: study design, results of a study, findings from related studies, sample size and setting, and how the students and setting in the study overlap with those in the district or school considering the intervention. Strategies identified as level 1 have the strongest evidence. Although it might seem ideal to solely implement ESSA Level 1 strategies due to their strong evidence of impact, it's important to note that limited evidence or lack of assigned level doesn't always exclude a strategy from consideration. Districts and schools are simply encouraged to choose evidence-based strategies that have been rigorously studied and have improved student learning. Additionally, evidence tier ratings are not static. As new evidence on a program's impacts becomes available, the rating may change. When implementing a strategy of any level, districts should contextualize their activities across implementation stages. These stages define the key components of how strategy implementation takes place over time. MyKIP incorporates the research-driven definition for stage-based implementation generated by the National Implementation Research Network, or NIRN. This definition includes exploration, installation, initial implementation, and full implementation, sustainability. Implementation is a nonlinear, often recursive process. With this complexity in mind, NIRN has developed an implementation stages planning tool, which helps districts identify the current stage of implementation, as well as supporting planning and improvement by providing a list of appropriate stage-based activities and an outline of expected stage-based outcomes. Teams can find a link to this tool on the resources slide at the end of this presentation. Intentionality is key as districts move through the stages to full implementation, a process which may take several years. Once a strategy has been selected, a stage has been determined, and context has been established, teams will then enter implementation activities into the MyKIP platform. This process includes assigning individuals or teams responsible for each activity's completion and thinking through a broad timeline, as well as determining which buildings will be implementing the strategy. District assignment of a strategy to a building generates inclusion of that strategy in the building's improvement plan as well. On the occasion that the selection process leads a district to require a completely new strategy, it may also be necessary to recruit new team members, district leaders who have the knowledge necessary to appropriately contextualize a brand new approach. Whether teams are adjusting a current implementation or embarking on a completely new one, the strategies on which the district chooses to focus will eventually make up the strategy implementation plan portion of MyKIP. As an additional support, teams may choose to develop a strategy implementation guide to define the critical components of the strategy and support implementation with fidelity. Strategy implementation guides create clarity around the gold standard of implementation for all stakeholders, which leads to tighter, more effective implementation, which in turn generates positive results. Guides can also be used to monitor implementation fidelity as educators move toward full implementation. We've now completed selecting strategies from the strategy bank. Congratulations, each of you has just received a stamp on your MyKIP passport. The next stop in the adding strategies process is the hexagon tool. Developed by NIRN for determining district readiness, the hexagon tool guides teams through consideration of new and existing innovations using 6 distinct components: need, fit, capacity, evidence, usability, and supports. Prior to use of the tool, it is important that teams develop a shared understanding of the broad need to be addressed, the focus population to be served, and the programs or practices to be assessed. The hexagon tool can be used to better understand how a new or existing program or practice fits into a district's existing work and context. Teams should keep in mind that hexagon tool use often prompts changes in current behavior. Assessment of fit and feasibility is inextricably linked to considerations of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Using the hexagon tool with an equity lens can prompt teams to consider potential impacts of the program or practice on the focus population and whether or not implementation of the program or practice could advance equitable outcomes for all individuals and families. The hexagon tool is not intended to be used as a Scantron or a checklist, but rather as a guide for making important decisions, such as whether to abandon a strategy or move forward with implementation. While it can be used at any stage of implementation, it's most commonly used during the exploration stage. Using the tool at a later stage can help diagnose implementation challenges related to contextual fit. If the organization has an implementation team, that team can carry out this function. We've now completed our stop at identifying readiness using the hexagon tool. Congratulations! Each of you just received another stamp on your MyKit passport. As teams officially move from adding strategies to choosing activities, a variety of additional considerations should surface. These detailed discussions could include planning for implementation within a tiered system, monitoring both implementation and impact, and strengthening the systems necessary for successful implementation. The MyKIP system will allow teams to organize, communicate, and monitor activities' progress in a variety of ways, using designated start and due dates to label activities as upcoming, approaching, due, or overdue. Teams should carefully consider both activity ownership and activity duration, as these designations can provide a clear structure for continued progress. Keep in mind that activities are the stepping stones that pave the way for a strategy to be successfully implemented. When teams are thoughtful and specific about mapping activities in alignment to a sequence of stages, such as the one shown here, they not only increase the likelihood of successful initial implementation, but they also lay the groundwork for full implementation and sustainability. We've now finished our stop at choosing activities. Congratulations! Each of you just received a stamp on your MyKit passport. We've now arrived at the funding stop. The MyKit structure promotes a thought process involving identifying needs, developing plans, and then addressing funding. This shift in thinking allows districts to prioritize innovations separate from funding parameters, and then braid and blend funding streams to arrive at their goal. A recommended first step when considering funding is to begin by allocating the most restrictive funds and then continuing to move to least restrictive funds until the chosen strategy and its subsequent activities are funded. When considering funding, it is also advisable to regularly consult with your MDE field service representative. The last stop for this portion of the MyKIP system is communication planning. Sometimes teams set out to implement carefully chosen strategies without addressing a potential void of communication to stakeholders. Thus, individuals are left to assemble the pieces and draft their own narrative. It's important to have a well-built communication plan that is honest and transparent. This plan will help shape and control the narrative, allowing stakeholders to focus on implementation and goal attainment. We've now finished our brief stop at both braiding and blending funding and communication planning. And congratulations, each of you just received the final stamps on your MyKIP passport.
Thank you, Lindsay. This section also provides resources for additional learning. Your team will have this available to you for deeper learning around identifying the readiness hexagon tool, how to choose activities, identifying communication plan, and also how to select activities from the strategy bank with resources from What Works Clearinghouse, the ESSA tiers of evidence, selecting evidence-based intervention, as well as the ESSA resource collection. MDE resources have been assembled to provide additional learning around the continuous improvement process in the MyKIP platform. For additional information and updates around MyKIP, we encourage you to visit the MDE resource page, www.michigan.gov/MDE-MyKIP, and to receive update communication, select the MDE email management page. So at this time, we ask you to click on the link in the chat box for the defining goals to add feedback on this session. We thank you for your attendance and your high level of engagement.